David was the son of Martin and Catherine David, small tenant farmers from Strade in County Mayo. In 1850, the Davids found themselves evicted from their holding and their home razed to the ground. The options at that stage were either the workhouse or the boat. The Davids chose the latter. The family moved to Haslingden, in a town in Lancashire about 19 miles north of Manchester, and there, like many of the community, many of the 1,000-strong Irish community found work in the local mills. Michael David himself went to work at the incredibly young age of 9 years of age in Parkinson's cotton mill. 2 years later, when he worked for Stelfox Mill, he suffered what would now be called an industrial accident, whereby he lost his arm. So you have an 11-year-old child who's now lost his right arm. As a consequence of his injury, he actually went to school in the Wesley High School for 4 years, where he emerged at 15, 16 years of age and managed to find work in the post office in Haslingden. By 1865, when David would have been 19 years of age, he's beginning to get involved in revolutionary politics. He joins the local IRB branch, the Irish Republican Brotherhood branch in Haslingden, where he developed a reputation for himself, both as an operator, and for an operator meaning involvement in direct military actions. Unfortunately for him, he was arrested in 1870 in London, and he was tried and convicted of treason, where he received 15 years penal servitude. But he returned in 1878 and immediately re-involves himself and re-engages himself in the Fenian movement. He would have encountered the country going through a serious economic depression. That depression was mainly as a result of the agricultural depression that affected all of Europe.
We're in Strade, County Mayo, at the Museum of Michael David, and where he lived was just a few hundred yards from here, just over the road here, or where he was evicted from. And so this museum then is commemorating his life and work.
Back in the early 1980s, Nancy Smith, who was the instigator and driving force behind the committee, called to my house. I was a young married woman at the time and new to the area, and she asked me would I go on to the committee.
We set a policy of it being non-political, non-sectarian, in keeping with the Land League.
Nancy and I then formed a friendship, and we have walked a path together over many years, long and winding path, and to the place we are today with this beautiful museum built in the old penal church, which has been restored, and where all the artifacts relating to Michael David's amazing life can be seen.
We started in 72 and we enlarged it in 75. We had to do church gate collections throughout the county, and they were very generous throughout the county because they supported the whole Land League movement. And when we put a building in place, we had to fundraise overseas as well, in Australia, in America, in England, along with throughout the county, and to the various commercial companies helped us out.
And so Nancy's dream was, and it seemed unreal at the time, was to restore this penal church, which had been used as a venue for the parish, for plays, and perhaps even after it was deconsecrated, different parish functions, and had fallen into disrepair. And so a lot of time and effort went into gaining funding for the restoration of this project, and it was opened by the Taoiseach of the time, Bertie Ahern, in the year 2000, October 2000.
The penal laws came in 1695, and they were here until around the time of the famine. They would have left about then. And David was christened in this church. So like this museum is very significant. It is very significant. Along with being a land league and David, it also has the connection, the earlier connection with penal laws and the Dominicans and the Reformation.
The Land League was a very important organisation at the time. According to David himself, it had over 1,000 branches throughout the length and breadth of Ireland with over 200,000 members. And it managed to unify not just tenant farmers. And remember, the tenant farmer group was a very wide class because you had the grazers in the rich farmlands of Meath and other parts of the Golden Vale in Tipperary and in Cork and places like that. And at the same time then you had the subsistence farmers. David brought that together, and not alone that, but he brought in the Irish Parliamentary Party, particularly Charles Stewart Parnell, who became president of the Land League, and indeed the emerging Catholic Church and the emerging Catholic middle classes. So it was an organisation that firstly politicised the whole land issue, brought it together in a coalition and made it a very, very powerful entity. Its main weapon was land agitation on a very wide-scale basis. So you have no rent manifestos, no payment of rent, boycotting, all of that. Well, boycotting was to come in later in the planning campaign, but a very militant form of land agitation.
They used to have all outdoor meetings, and they would have between 2,000 to 5,000 at the outdoor meetings, and they used to make all their proposals off the platforms. And there'd always be a constable in the audience, because he would report back to Dublin what transpired at the meeting. And then in July 1879, the Act was rescinded, and you had the indoor meeting, and this was the first indoor meeting that was held. And there were 36 people at it in Castlebar. At the in-between, David became involved with helping to organise the meeting, and there was up to 10,000 people at it. It was a big meeting, and they set out the rules and what they wanted.
Michael David, what I was really impressed about him was like he himself was a migrant of Irish. In fact, he was born up in England, but when he was in England, he got involved in some of the activities that helped the Irish citizen, helped to do the Irish independence. Because I was here in Ireland, I'm not a migrant myself, but I know some of the Chinese, they may be migrants, but some of them may not show that much interest or that much really passion to your own home country. How can we promote this kind of Irish history to China? Because when we searched the internet, we found that although the Irish tourism and Irish literature and some of the Irish culture are in Mandarin materials, but in the area of Irish history, we find it kind of like totally blank. And that is what we are trying to do, to marking our folklore and our history through this period of industry. Sun Yat-sen was a great man of China. He was called the father of the nation in China.
There is a similarity, I think, between himself and Sun Yat-sen in China. Sun Yat-sen was seeing the need for change likewise. So there's similarity in that both wanted what was best for their respective countries, but they had mixed results, if you like.
Always an interesting question as to what historic figures would have thought of Irish society, and probably particularly difficult with David, who was had such mixed views on various issues. I think he would have been very unhappy with the growing levels of inequality in Irish society. I think that would have been his key gripe. I think he would have been quite happy with the fact that we are in independent Ireland, albeit only for 26 counties. But he would have seen that as a step forward. I think he would have been very happy with the secularisation that's taken place in Ireland.
I don't know too much about Michael Davitt, but one of the things that was striking me is that he was, I think he seems to be a much underrated person, in that the movements that he was engaged in, like for nationalising the land, it can't be said to be very successful. What it did pave the way for was all these bills in the House of Parliament in London for transferring ownership from landlords to tenants, and it did that. But he was more radical. He was looking for something a lot further and deeper.
I hadn't heard an awful lot about Michael Davitt. In history, growing up in Dublin, somehow he wasn't to the forefront of our history lessons, as I found out later he should have been.